Hi guys, so this is the massMobile project, and this is a work that's coming out of a collaborative master's project at Georgia Tech, Georgia Institute of Technology in Atlanta, Georgia. And the idea behind this is that, as you can see, we call it an audience participation framework. So what this does is, in the past, whenever a composer or a dancer or some type of artist wanted to include audience participation feedback directly into the live work, they would generally have to create a system from scratch to be able to do that. The hope of the massMobile project is to remove that technical barrier and allow composers and artists with little or no technical expertise to be able to almost instantly set up a project with massMobile and begin to receive input, feedback from their audience in a multitude of different interface elements to immediately incorporate into their work. So, for example, on the very first page here, you can see that obviously this is meant to be a project-based application where we would eventually have multiple projects set up in massMobile, and audience members would be directed at the beginning of a performance or an exhibit to select a certain type of project, and then possibly an event, because a project, for example, a single work or composition could have multiple performances over a period of time, and we want to allow for possibly different settings at those different events. So when you select the event and click login, that's going to download. Let me just bring up the log here. That's going to download the configuration for that event from the server. And for this test event, we've enabled every single input mechanism. And the app itself is very general and open to configuration by the composer. So even here on this menu, this is where the configuration starts to come in. All of these different input elements can be named by the composer. So for example, with the texture element, button text that's visible are configurable by the composer on what they want that to say, so they can direct their audience members to give them input in whatever fashion they want. So I'll just go over next here all of the basic elements we have enabled here. So an XY touch area, basically we just have the touch area, and it submits those XY coordinates to the server. You've probably already reviewed most of this. Again, this label is custom here for our test event that we created, red and blue. We'll double tap to erase or submit. And then we have a voting mechanism here. So the composer can configure a list of voting choices that the audience can then obviously choose from. And when you click, that represents a cast ballot for the vote system. So the general idea is that we take all of this data that's coming in from the mobile app, and then obviously it's put into, we have an Xserve that collects all of this in the MySQL database with the Java front-end web service running to collect all of this, and then we provide that to well, basically any environment that can communicate with a SOAP-based web service. But we have set up a demonstration in massMSP, which is sort of a music programming language environment, sort of a visual programming language environment. And so what we have set up here is that we have all example of that one-dimensional slider that we showed here. We can provide the composer the statistics for everybody that's putting in one-dimensional sliders here, and then if you look at this as I slide this, the value in the massMSP patch should change, and that's going to provide valuable input to the composer. For example, here, if we step out of the music domain and get into more the theater or dance domain, if we want to play with or have the audience members interact with the stage lighting, for example, if we want to give them a choice between more of a red hue to this massMSP patch, we can determine should we set the lighting as red or blue or a mixture in between, and we would communicate that to the lighting equipment over MIDI. And another example that's actually going to be coming up in our first use of the system in actually a little less than 2 weeks now in Avignon, France, at the annual dance festival there. We are working with dancer Jonah Beaucaire, and one of the main things that we're going to be doing is using this voting mechanism specifically for choosing a lighting cue. So, for example, in one of the sections of Jonah's piece, the lighting director is going to provide several different choices or alternatives lighting settings for that section, and then allow the audience to choose which one should be showing on stage currently. So we'll also have a feedback mechanism present at the performance for the audience to see, the actual tally of which choices have a certain number of votes, etc. So that is basically how the project works. And again, our first event is in just less than 2 weeks in Avignon, France. We'll be doing 2 performances there with the system, and then with Jonah, and then a U.S. premiere of his piece in April at Georgia Tech. So again, if you have any questions, let me know. Actually, I'll go through here in this massMSP patch and just show you some of the other things that we have here. For example, for the text messages, move this out of the way, we can start that, and then so you can see here that as the text messages come in, they're displayed here in various colors and different areas, representing different unique phones. So, and the composer or artist could choose to display these in some sort of installation, or for example, a composer could use this sort of visual feedback for a performer to not to display back to the audience, but simply to give the performer feedback during the performance of the work. And again, you saw the 1D slider stats. Also, we can go through the various down here, the various 2-dimensional coordinates from that from the XY touch area, and we can either go through these sequentially as this is doing here, or we can use the slider stats to provide a more general idea of the overall center of gravity, if you will, of the audience's touch area. So those are just a few of the ways that the data can be incorporated from the iPhone app. So if you do have any more questions, let me know. Again, the performance is coming up very soon, so I appreciate you getting in touch with me quickly, and look forward to getting this on the App Store as soon as possible. Thanks.